Right, great. So hello everyone and welcome properly to this evening's Digital Glaucoma Support Group. Thank you all so much for joining us. In a slight change to the advertised billing, I'll be hosting tonight rather than Philippa Mason, our Development Manager for Scotland. I'm Joanna Bradley, our Head of Support Services, and I'm joined by our wonderful Helpline Manager and resident ophthalmic nurse, Helen Doe. Helen and Trish make up our Helpline team, and many of you have spoken to them over the years. And the Glaucoma UK Helpline team is an incredible fount of all knowledge for all things glaucoma, and they've taken thousands of calls from people with glaucoma and managing the helpline. And they also moderate the Glaucoma UK forum on Health Unlocked and answer all the glaucoma queries that come into us through email. So what they don't know about glaucoma isn't worth knowing. They've built up a huge bank of knowledge today, and we really want to take complete advantage of that. If you're a regular digital support group member, you'll know that we like to have various different topics and formats, and some tend to be more of a lecture and some are more interactive. And this evening's talk is definitely an interactive session, please. So it's going to be quite informal. It's going to be basically a chat between me and Helen, talking about all things glaucoma. And we really, really want your contributions. So if you have any questions, anything to do with glaucoma, please post them into the Q&A box so that we can sort of steer the conversation and make sure we're really tackling things that are of interest to you. So what we'll start by doing is just going over some of our so-called glaucoma hot topics. And those are the things that come up most often in our interactions with helpline users, and like some of the most common questions that we get. So while we're doing that, while Helen and I are having a chat, I want you to think of any questions that you have about glaucoma. However, please do remember we're not your ophthalmologist and we don't have access to your medical records. So we therefore obviously can't answer very specific questions about your individual circumstances. So please bear with us if we say you'll have to take that back to your ophthalmologist, to your doctor or specialist. But this is a chance to have any burning questions you have. So whether you're newly diagnosed and you want to know something really, really basic, or whether you've been living with glaucoma for a while, something a bit more specific, or maybe what do you wish someone had told you. Also, hello to our Facebook audience. If you're watching on Facebook, we want you to interact as well. So please post any questions that you have into the comments in Facebook, and they'll be fed into the webinar for us by Tom, who's here today to help us. As usual, there'll be 2 short polls launched during the webinar, and these are to help us see the difference that the sessions are having. I'm going to launch the first one now. And this one will stay open just for a minute or two until we can see that we've got most people who have responded to the poll. So just tell us how much you think you know about glaucoma. Even if you can't think of a specific question this evening, do open up that Q&A box. You can just click on the button that says Q&A and a box will pop open. You can still get involved even if you can't think of a question, and you can like it. You can give it a thumbs up if there's one that's there. And that question sort of shoots to the top of the queue, so we can really tell what are the topics that the most people are interested in, and we'll really try and focus on those wherever possible. So we'll just leave the poll open for another few seconds. I think there might be a couple of people who haven't answered it, but I will continue. So when you call us on the helpline or email us, we take a note of the broad areas that you're contacting us about. And over the years, this builds a brilliant picture of all the things you have concerns and questions about, and it helps us to focus our support to make sure that we're actually helping you with the things you want help with. So the 4 main areas that you've contacted us about recently are eye drops, laser, surgery, and driving. So we're going to spend a bit of time looking specifically at those topics, but thinking about the most common questions within those topics. And then we'll pass over to you at the end for our usual Q&A session, and that's when you can ask anything else glaucoma related. So without further ado, let's get going. I will end the poll. And so Helen, let's go if you are ready.
I'm ready.
Great. Let's start with eye drops. It's always been a massive topic. It's a huge focus of activity that we do. And on the screen, we've got a couple of people having a chat here. They've got speech bubbles coming out of their mouths, and one saying, "Hey, how did you get on with the eye clinic?" And the other says, "Well, I've got some eye drops for glaucoma, but I've got some questions." So let's have a think about some of the biggest questions that we have about eye drops. So Helen, why do we need eye drops for glaucoma? What do they do?
Eye drops will help reduce the pressure within the eye, and by reducing the pressure, then you're going to help keep your vision as stable as possible. Some of the drops will work on the drainage angles, so it's increasing the drainage of the fluid out of the eye, and other drops will work on the actual place where the production of the fluid happens for the eye. So it's a bit like having a tap and a basin and a plug hole, and some of the drops will turn the tap off a bit and increase the plug hole, and we would do both. So it's all about reducing fluid, and the area where the fluid is produced is called the ciliary body, and it sits 360 degrees just behind the iris, and the drainage angle is about 360 degrees, sort of right around the iris. So if you can improve all that, then you're going to keep the pressure down.
Great, thank you. So now we know what eye drops are for, but you know, they're hard, they're a pain, they're a bit of a burden to put in every day. So what happens if I sort of miss my drops a bit, or I just stop taking my drops completely?
Yeah, if you're having trouble putting your drops in, and you could say you haven't been diagnosed with glaucoma for very long, then sometimes practice makes perfect. Sometimes it's just how you're putting the drops in. So you might need a different technique. Maybe rather than sitting up, you might need to be lying down. There's also dispensing aids that help put eye drops in. And yes, don't struggle. Give us a call and we can help you find the right aid for you for your eye drops. They do vary because eye drop bottles vary in different sizes, around the neck of the bottle, how much pressure you need to squeeze the bottle. And if you're having a reaction for any reason from one of your drops, then do contact the hospital, give the eye secretary a ring to pass on to your consultant, who will come back with an alternative drop. So don't just give up, is what I'm saying. There will be a drop out there that will be suitable for you.
Great, thank you. And does it, you know, if I am struggling a bit, does it matter if I miss a dose, or I just think it's a bit much and I have a few weeks off my eye drops?
Yeah, no, you can't miss, you mustn't miss. Yes, it's going to happen perhaps once or twice, but try and get it into a routine. So either keep the drop somewhere that's convenient, quite sort of near a toothbrush if you're doing them in the evening, or if you're doing them morning and evening, it's just a little reminder to remember to do your eye drop. A lot of people keep it by the side of the bed when it's an evening drop so they can do it before they go to sleep. But if you don't do your drops on a regular basis, your pressure is going to increase and you're going to lose vision. It's vital that you keep on doing those drops.
Great, thank you. And sometimes the drops might hurt, you know, they might sting a bit. Can you sort of, or you know, you might get some side effects. Could you explain a bit why those might happen and what we can do about it?
Yeah, some drops will sting when they first go into your eye, but it should wear off fairly quickly, 1 to 2 minutes. When you start a new drop, sometimes it can take a week to settle down. If it's a really bad stinging sensation you have and it's making your eyes go red and water, that's when you should contact the hospital. Hopefully you've been given a number to contact, but if you haven't, again, the eye secretary or an eye clinic liaison officer will perhaps try and help you and get in contact with your consultant and get that drop changed. But you need to do it straight away so that you're not missing a drop. So you don't want to put up with it, because if it's really irritating your eye, you are just going to stop. If it's comfortable for your eye, that's more incentive to keep remembering to put the drop in.
Great, thank you. And we know that a lot of people get quite kind of embarrassed about, I should be able to do my drops, I shouldn't create a bit of a, such a fuss about nothing. I should just be able to get on with it. What can we do if people feel like that?
It's a lot of people feel like that. And I mean, I'm used to putting drops in people's eyes. And when it came to mine, putting a dry eye drop in, I missed the first couple of times. So, don't beat yourself off about it. Even the professionals have problems. So, yeah, it is practice. And if you want that help, as I said before, give us a call, or the eye clinic liaison officers are really useful at the clinic. So if you go to your appointment and you would like help and with somebody to show you a different technique or advise you which dispensing aid you can have for your particular drop, then they will be able to help you. You're not alone in this. We can help. There are ECLOs can help. We can all help you. Great.
That is very, very reassuring. Thank you. And you said a little bit about some sort of positions that can help. Is there sort of one technique that helps get your eye drops in, or a few different ones?
There are a few different ones, and I've said it before to lots of people, you're not just a pair of eyes, so it all depends what other perhaps medical problems you may have. If you've got arthritis, perhaps a frozen shoulder, then lifting your arm can be a problem when you're putting drops in. And but for the different techniques, usually sitting down rather than standing, because you have to tilt your head back just a little way, and by standing and tilting your head back, that can make some people very dizzy. So it's a very good idea to sit down whilst you're doing your eye drops. Have a mirror in front of you. It's an impossibility to put your drop in and look at the mirror at the same time, because you're looking up. So you're pulling your bottom lid down, popping the drop in. And then if you are having problems with lifting your arm, then laying down, you can actually turn the bottle horizontal, rest it on the bridge of your nose, and squeeze the drop in like that. If the drop didn't go straight into your eye, it would go in just in the corner there, and you just tilt your head slightly and it will run into your eye. We do have all this that you can look on at on the website, and on the glaucoma eye drops booklet, that's really good, and an easy read guide also is excellent, and they're all available on our website for you to order free of charge. And just order that and that will be sent to you. If you're not very good online, give the helpline a call and we can order it on your behalf and it will get sent to you, and then you can try these different things out. Don't carry on struggling though. If you're still having problems, give the helpline a call and we can try something else for you. Never give up.
Great, thank you. But I can see there have been a few questions about eye drops already in the Q&A. So we'll do most of them at the end, but I can see a really good one, which is if people miss a dose because they forget, they're supposed to take it at kind of 8 in the morning and they realise a bit later in the day that they've forgotten. What's the best thing to do? Should they take it anyway, or should they wait until the next dose?
Yeah, it is hopefully it doesn't happen too often, but if you were going to put it in at 8 o'clock and it's midday, then I would advise you put the drop in. Depending on whether you've got to put the drop in again in the evening, makes a difference. If it's only once a day, then yes, put the drop in as soon as possible. If it's very close to the second dose, say about 2 or 3 hours before it, even 4 hours, then no, you would wait or bring that second dose forward slightly, so you're compensating. So it's sort of in between. So to just recap, because it's a bit confusing. if it was due at 8, sort of anything really up to about 3 hours before the second one is due, put your drop in. If it's very close to the second dose, you would just be doing the second dose. You'd actually miss the drop. So nearer to the second dose, don't worry about it, but otherwise do put the drop in.
Great, thank you. So it's just a bit of a common sense approach, really, isn't it? About
it kind of is. And again, we don't mind people calling us to ask us. If it happens on the day, give us a call.
Yeah,
we'll help you out with it.
Yeah, absolutely. But equally, you know, if you've missed one, don't massively panic. You know, just
it's no panic.
Up for the next one. Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Right. Moving on, because we've got lots we want to cover. We're going to talk now about laser treatment. So there are two main types of laser treatment for glaucoma. So there's a picture on the screen about a particular one called SLT, or selective laser trabeculoplasty. So let's imagine that my consultant has suggested that I might have laser treatment for my glaucoma. Can you tell us a little bit about what that involves?
Yeah, so selective laser trabeculoplasty, SLT for obvious reasons, is aimed at the trabecular meshwork, as you can see there. That is the drainage angle inside the eye. It's useful for people with primary open angle glaucoma, normal tension glaucoma. Not really for primary angle closure glaucoma. They don't tend to do that because that angle isn't open enough for the laser treatment to be performed. So they will do either maybe partial or 180 degrees possibly of your drainage angle. And what happens is it is known as a cold laser. So it is a gentle laser. Although it just disturbs the tissue a little bit and your body responses come to that area. And what happens is it helps open up that drainage angle. Now, this particular one is about 78% successful. But if it works, it can be repeated, which is fantastic.
Right.
The peripheral iridotomy is for people with primary angle closure glaucoma, narrow angles. So what this is doing is actually lasering a little hole in the iris, usually at the top of the iris, where the top lid will actually cover that. Although if somebody's had this done, you wouldn't automatically see it on them and say, oh, you've had an iridotomy, because the hole is really small. But it's to encourage the fluid to drain through the hole as well as the pupil. And by doing that, the iris, the colour part of the eye, rests back just a little bit. And by doing that, it helps open up the drainage angle.
Great, thank you. So there's two different types of laser treatment depending on what type of glaucoma we have. And if we focus on SLT more, because it's kind of more common, so I'll ask you a few questions now about SLT. Does it hurt to have it? It sounds quite scary to have a laser in your eye.
It does, doesn't it? Eyes and lasers, you never sort of would link the two, would you really? And it's a bit Star Wars-ish. So after speaking to people, no, it doesn't hurt. I've spoken to just a couple people who said it was a bit uncomfortable, but otherwise no. So, I mean, you are going to have numbing drops beforehand. And you will be putting your chin on a rest, your head against the band like you would when your eye's examined. And you'd just be aware of a lens being put on your eye. You wouldn't feel that. Again, the numbing drops. And you'd hear a clicking noise from the laser treatment. And because the laser, even though it's cold, it will cause a very small amount of inflammation within inside the eye, but you're covered for that by having anti-inflammatory drops given to you to do at home, and maybe a couple of paracetamol, if you've got discomfort, would be enough to actually stop that.
Great, thank you. So yeah, that follows on to the next question really. So how long's the kind of recovery period and the post-operative period?
Yeah, I mean, you might have drops, the anti-inflammatory drops, for about a week. I mean, this varies from consultant to consultant. So, but for maybe about a week, and then you would be able to do everything the following day. It's just that you might have blurring of your vision for a couple of hours after the laser treatment, but that will slowly clear. So yeah, it's almost back to normal. The thing with the selective laser trabeculoplasty is that it can take quite a while to work. So you may be checked sort of a couple of weeks afterwards, but then 6 to 8 weeks, because that's given it time to actually work.
Lovely, thank you. So I guess the important thing is that people won't be able to drive home after the procedure, but they should be able to drive within a couple of days. Is that?
Yes,
right?
When it's comfortable for that person. Yeah.
Okay. And you said a bit about this already, but sort of how long does it last? How long will you get the benefits for if it does work?
It can last anything from 1 to 5 years, roughly. But it will vary from person to person. We're all different, and so we react differently. So, but as I said, if it does work, then you can have it repeated. So you're kind of doubling that time. So it could be, if you've had it sort of before, it could be longer. It could be 2 to 10 years without drops if it's working the first and second time. And that's great news for people. Quite often it's given to newly diagnosed people straight away as a first line of treatment. And the same with people with ocular hypertension as well. It's very useful for that. Okay, yes, it might mean you need to do drops later on, but that's going to give you those few years.
It buys you some time before you
Yeah.
have to manage eye drops. Great. And are there really sort of significant risks?
Yeah, there's always risk. They're quite minimal. They're very minimal with selective laser trabeculoplasty. There might be just a little bit of bleeding, but that will just get reabsorbed into the blood supply. It's not heat. You wouldn't see your eye all red or anything like that on the iris part, the colored part of your eye. It might just feel a little bit sore, but otherwise, no, there's no huge complications with that. Sometimes the pressure can rise after the SLT treatment. If this happens, what usually, or even if it doesn't happen, they usually ask you to wait around about an hour after having that done, just so that they can check the pressure in your eye. And quite often also they will give you a drop called iopidine following the laser treatment to counteract. Also, it's a pressure lowering drop.
Okay,
so you're
great.
covered. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. And again, we've got a kind of couple of questions about laser. One is a really quick one. So do they do both eyes at the same time? Can you have both eyes done?
You can. You can have both eyes done at the same time, and quite often they will do that. But I have spoken to people who haven't wanted both done. They wanted to see how the first eye goes. And yes, they were allowed. Of course, they were allowed to do that, because you sign a consent form before you have this done. So it's your choice. But the only thing, I wouldn't pressurize anybody to have, and of course, making them say, yes, you've got, it's best to have both eyes done, but you've got to take into account at the moment waiting lists and everything as well. So, if you've got somebody perhaps that could be with you just for the night, it's not necessarily totally necessary, but it's just quite nice to have a relative or somebody there with you for the evening, especially if you have both eyes done and it's a bit blurred. It's going to help you.
Great, thank you. Right, I'm aware of time, so we're going to crack on to our next topic. I can see that there have been more questions about laser, but we're going to move on to the next topic and then have time at the end for questions. So the next topic is glaucoma surgery. And there's a photo on the screen of some surgeons doing an operation. So let's imagine that my ophthalmologist has said I need to consider surgery for my glaucoma. What is it that surgery does that eye drops or laser treatment can't do?
Surgery will sometimes works in combination with eye drops to help lower the pressure. Sometimes it's to help lower the pressure without having to use eye drops. They all take the pressure down, but perhaps in different amounts. So the minimally invasive, or the MIGs at the top there, will take the pressure down just a few digits, and as you get to the other two at the bottom there, it would take the pressure down a lot more, depending on where you are with your glaucoma and what you've had before. But it's what type of glaucoma you have on any of those particular procedures as well, to whether it's good for you. Your consultant might think eye drops are doing fine. Why disrupt anything? It's usually when they see a slight change on your visual field test or on your optic disc, and they think, okay, we've done all these drops. Let's just try some surgery, even if it's minimally invasive, just to see if we can take it down a little bit more and help the drops with it.
Yeah, great, thank you. So you've sort of half answered the next question already. There are a few different types of surgery. So can you just sort of explain in the simplest possible terms what these different types of surgery are?
Okay, so MIGS is minimally invasive glaucoma surgery. The main two types for that are one called eye stent and the other is called hydrus. Now, these are good for people who have mild to moderate glaucoma. And they're aimed at putting these little stents into the drainage angle or the trabecular meshwork, like we talked about before, and that aids in letting the fluid out easier than it's been and sort of unblocking it, basically. The MIBS is minimally invasive bleb surgery, and a bleb is, for people that don't know, is where you're taking fluid from inside the eye out, and the fluid drains under the conjunctiva, which is the clear membrane that covers the white of the eye. So it won't form tears or anything, but it causes like a little reservoir of the fluid draining out, and it will look like a little blister, but you won't see it. It'll be under your top lid. So unless you lift your top lid, you wouldn't, it's not, visually, you can't see it. So MIBS is still sort of minimally invasive as well, but just a little bit more so than perhaps the first one. Trabeculectomy is more of a major surgery along with the aqueous shunt. Trabeculectomy will quite often be for when you're on maximum drops and the other two procedures perhaps can't be done, aren't going to help you, drainage. They will suggest a trabeculectomy. This is making an incision into the white of your eye, the sclera, and it's like a little trapdoor, and the fluid from inside the eye will pass through that and again form a bleb, or the little reservoir of your eye fluid, which will then be absorbed into the blood supply, into your blood system, sorry. Aqueous shunts doing the same thing. It's taking the fluid out from inside the eye out but this time, instead of having a trapdoor, you're using a tube.
Great, thank you. So as far as I understand, the MIGS is the kind of simplest surgery, or like the least involved surgery, and then as we go down that list, we've got the kind of more complicated surgery at the bottom. Is that right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
probably that relationship is that if you have MIGS, you know, the nearer you are at the top of that list, the earlier your glaucoma is potentially, or the less damage you've got, and further down is maybe for people who are getting a bit further. Is that right?
Usually, yes, that's usually the way. Some people are very allergic to eye drops, and it might be that your particular eye specialist thinks a trabeculectomy is the way to go. I mean, it also, you don't want to use that too early for somebody who's younger, because you know they've got many lives, many years left. And if they do a trabeculectomy, you've got no backup, so they would try probably simpler things first. But yeah, they're all very good, and not all eye specialists will do all of those operations. But if you know, they thought that you should have perhaps a MIBS, they would refer you to a consultant that does it. But they've all got their own specialities and what works best for them surgery wise and for their patients.
Great, lovely. And we've sort of talked about this a bit, but are there risks for the different types of surgery?
Yes, I mean there is. So the mix is quite low risk. All operations have risks. So if you're entering the eye, there might be a slight bleed with the MIGS, not always, but usually there's a slight bleed because you're actually putting a stent into human tissue. But it will clear. MIBS, again, yeah, you've got to just make sure that the pressure is coming down, and that the body's not healing itself too quickly and causing scar tissue. There's all these little things, trabeculectomy and aqueous shunt, maybe a few more complications there really, from the point of view of it being a big operation. And it's always good to discuss the complications with your consultant, and because again you're signing a consent form, you need informed knowledge to be able to sign that consent form. But the complications are low percentages, but you still need to know about them.
They're all established, aren't they? That, you know, they've been around for you know, some more than others, but you know, some a really, really long time, and the success rates are generally pretty good, aren't they?
They are, yeah. I mean, the MIGS and the MIBS are still fairly new compared to the trabeculectomy. I think the trabeculectomy it's over 50 years old now, and it's a gold standard operation, which has had sort of things added to it to make it a little bit better and improve it. But yeah, I mean, there's good things coming out of the MIGS and MIBS as well, but they just haven't got so much data yet on them. But there's been good results, and good results again from people I've actually spoken to. So yeah.
Great, lovely. And then I know we're talking about lots of different techniques as well, but what about the recovery? So if we think about a kind of recovery from MIGS or a recovery from a trabeculectomy, how long are we looking at?
MIGS is a very quick recovery. Trabeculectomy is much slower because again you're actually making an incision into the eye. With a trabeculectomy, you're talking about 6 to 8 weeks recovery. It doesn't mean you can't do anything during that time. You're going to be watched so carefully. So you probably go back to the hospital the day after your operation, and then a week later, then 2 weeks later. So trabeculectomy has more eye drops. They're very intensive after you've had trabeculectomy. And you're talking about like 2 hourly drops for the first week and 4 hourly drops at the same time, which will gradually reduce. Certain things that you can't do as well, sort of bending your head right over, lifting heavy things, and just taking it easy and being patient with your body really until things have recovered. It's about giving yourself time. So all that will be taken into account, and when somebody decides whether they want that or not, or whether they would rather try something else first, a different operation first.
Yeah, great. I think that's a really important point, isn't it? If you're it's always your choice about whether you're going to have surgery, and the role of the doctor there is to help you assess the kind of the benefits and the risks of the different types of surgery. But ultimately, it is your choice, isn't it?
We get a lot of calls on it, and it's such a shame because most people want me to tell them what to do. I can't. I'm tempted sometimes, but I could get it wrong. I can't make a decision, and I do understand. And if I was in the same situation, I would have trouble. You keep going over it and over it and looking into it, and but give yourself time, and do talk to your relatives about it as well, and give us a call. We'll talk it through. We won't give you the complete answer, but we'll help you with your decision.
Great, thank you. Do you want to just explain about the buddy service really quickly for anyone who doesn't know?
Yes, so we do a buddy service where people that have had operations, glaucoma operations, and have had laser treatment as well, have come forward and said they're more than happy to speak to people who are waiting to have glaucoma surgery or laser. And all you need to do is give us a call, tell us what type of surgery or laser you're having, if you know it. And sometimes we can kind of work it out, but it's best if you do know. And then what we'll do is we'll pair you up with somebody that we've got on our list that is most suitable from your circumstances as well. And then we give the buddy a ring, make sure they're still happy to do it. What is the best time for them to for you to call them, and then we come back to you with their number and the best time to call them. And then what we always do is about a week to 2 weeks afterwards, we will give you and the buddy a call to make sure you're both happy with how it went. And it's a good way for us to check to see, have you got any other questions? It's really, we can go through any of these procedures with you, but I can't tell you how it actually feels or what it was like after the operation, what the drops were like, any of that. But these people will for you, and they'll let you know. And sometimes, a buddy will say, well, let me know how you get on after you've had the operation, which is really nice. And they've, some of them have kept in touch. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. So unfortunately, again, the buddy can't actually make the decision for you, like Helen said about calling the helpline, but they can again help you make the decision that feels right for you. So having listened to someone who's actually had that surgery, you'll then be in a better position to decide whether it sounds like something you want to undertake or not. Our buddies are wonderful, and if there are any buddies listening, thank you so much. You really do make a massive difference to the people that you help, so thank you.
And just to say that some people who have used a buddy and found it really helpful have come back to us and said, yeah, I'd like to be a buddy now because I found it so useful. I'd like to do the same for somebody else.
Fab. Yep. Great. Right. Well, last sort of main topic now, which is driving. So this is always a really big topic into our helpline. And we've got a picture of a man driving here and a quote from, I think this was a question that came up at a support group years ago, which was, I've got glaucoma in both eyes. The optometrist has told me that. Do I need to tell the DVLA? I only do little journeys and I'm the carer for my wife and she's 88 and I'm 90, but I really want to get this right. So this is very, very common. We get lots of people contacting us about driving. So Helen, I can see perfectly well. Why do I have to report my glaucoma to the DVLA?
If you have glaucoma in both eyes, you need to report it to the DVLA. Now, the reason you're doing that really is to cover yourself. And it's to cover them as well. So it doesn't mean, of course, that you can't drive. And what will happen is once you've informed the DVLA, they will send you a form to fill in. And once you sent that back, they will get you to do a driving visual field test at the Specsavers store. And this is just to make sure you're seeing sort of in your, all over the place, but with both eyes. It's not like your glaucoma test that you have done at the hospital, where you do one eye at a time. It's an easier test from that point of view because you're using both eyes and the lights don't keep fading like they do for the glaucoma test. And they would check at Specsavers also the distance vision. It's Specsavers because Specsavers have the contract with the DVLA. If you have glaucoma in one eye, but not in the other eye, and the other eye has perfect vision, and there's no problems with that, you don't have to, at the point of being diagnosed, let the DVLA know. That's absolutely fine. If you are diagnosed with ocular hypertension, again, you don't need to let the DVLA know. It's only when it's in both eyes, but please don't let it worry. As I say, there are loads of people out there with glaucoma that are driving.
Lovely, thank you. That's very reassuring. And what happens if you don't tell the DVLA of your glaucoma, if you've been diagnosed with it in both eyes?
If you're found out that you haven't let the DVLA know for whatever reason, I mean, it could be that somebody has gone into the back of you, and that will cause problems. But if the DVLA find that out, then there is a fine of £1,000 actually for not letting them know. And as I said, if somebody, for instance, went into the back of you in the car, then and it's found out that you've got glaucoma in both eyes, you haven't let the DVLA know, your insurance and their insurance rather will not pay out. That will go against you. So as I say, it's to cover yourself. I think it's rather nice also to know that, okay, I'm driving and my eyes are fine for driving. I've been, I've had the test at Specsavers, it's fine. Everybody knows. I think it's a bit more relaxing to know that when you're driving around as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's reassurance for yourself, isn't it? But your insurance, even if you have glaucoma, as long as you've told the DVLA, your insurance still covers you, doesn't it? You don't need to.
They should do. Yeah, I would recommend that you still let your insurance company know. There's so many insurance companies, and I wouldn't be able to say, oh yes, they all work the same, but it shouldn't really affect payment at all for insurance, because you've done the test for the DVLA and you've passed it and they are happy with it. Yeah,
great. And so what happens? You do that, you inform them, you do the test at Specsavers that you've already explained, and then what happens?
Then the test, you don't have to send it. Specsavers will send it off to the DVLA, and then they will come back to you and let you know. They will let you know whether you've passed the test on the machine, on the visual field machine or not. If you have difficulty using the machine, sometimes it will show up on the result, on your visual field test result, and it might mean that they may send you on to a different machine to do it. But there's always the chance also that if for any reason they come back to you and say, well, no, you haven't passed, you do have a chance to do an informal appeal. And by doing that, you just let them know and you go along to an independent optician's to have another driving visual field done. And then that can get sent to the DVLA. And again, they'll assess whether they think you've passed or not. If they think yes, you have passed the independent one, they will again send you to a Specsavers store just to do one more. But people do. Some people do pass that on the, doing the informal appeal is sometimes worth doing for people. And I would say, yes, have a go. The next step is a formal appeal. You're then talking about a large amount of money and going to court to sort all this out. So But that, that's up to you. But it's worth doing an informal appeal if you think that, no, I'm fine. My, vision's fine.
Great.
Excuse me.
Thank you. Right, so thank you so much, Helen. That was a real whistle-stop tour through the biggest topics in glaucoma. So thank you very much. We've had loads and loads of questions, which is fantastic to see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see you better, and we'll go through all those questions that we've had already on the Q&A. Just so people know, I'll focus on the ones that I think are of most interest to our audience, and then some of the questions are a bit more specific, a bit more niche, so I might not prioritize those, but we'll see how far we can get. So bear with me. Let's start with the Facebook one first. So this is one that's come in through our audience on Facebook. It's about eye drops. So what should I do when I'm out and about and I'm trying to manage my eye drops? Have you got any advice there, please, Helen?
Okay, out and about. So yeah, or I mean, if your drops, always check the storage on your drops, what temperature it shouldn't exceed. I mean, usually in this country we're okay. If you're going somewhere hot and you're out and about, we do and you can get cool wallets, which will keep your drop cool, so not exceed too high a temperature. It works by evaporation. Gel crystals form gel, and there's like 3 little pouches. They're not big, and it lasts for 45 hours. So it's really good for that. If you don't need to, always take your drops with you. And I mean, it's easy when you're out. You might be enjoying yourself out somewhere. Take some hand sanitizer if you can't get to a basin to wash your hands before putting your drop in. And maybe you can, if, I don't know, in the toilets, say in a theatre, if you can do that. There's always a way of doing it, but I'm not sure whether the question is relating to how you carry it around, how you keep them cool, or just how can I put them in when I'm out somewhere else. I mean, if you've got somebody else that's willing to do it for you, that's all good as well.
It was there was no more specific information in the question. Okay. It was very general, but I think the summary is it takes a bit of preparation. Is that right? That it's really important to take your drops, and you just need to think, do I need to keep them cool? How am I going to put them in? Do I need someone with me? And do some preparation and make sure that you take the drops every day.
Yes. Yeah.
Having been hot very recently, we've had a couple of questions about that. Obviously, you've mentioned the cool wallets, but what about keeping the eye drops in the fridge? Is that okay?
Yes, that's okay. I would say don't keep it in the fridge itself. Keep it in the door of the fridge, or the fridge of the door, which is, I said to somebody the other day over the phone. But the door of the fridge, because it's not the coldest place. It's not going to be so cold. It's but it's going to, I would only use that when it gets very hot. The reason I say that is because, we've heard from a couple of eye consultants that some of their patients have kept it in the door of the fridge and they've forgotten to do their drops. So maybe, if you usually keep your drops out at room temperature and you feel it is very hot, put it in that door of the fridge. But then maybe when the temperature then reverts back to being lower, then you can take them out again.
Yeah, great, thank you. So again, it's just a bit of sort of common sense, and the most important thing is to put in your eye drops, and then it's all about finding the route that works for you.
Yes, for you. Yeah.
Work for you. So someone said if they're not sure that the drop has gone into their eye, what should they do? Should they put in another one?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it, that one? Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's handy if you've kept your drop in the door of the fridge, because you're more likely to feel it go in. But if you think that that drop hasn't gone in, it's going to be probably running down your face. So you might be aware that that's happened. If you're really not sure, then yes, do put another drop in, because if that drop's still in and you've pulled down the lower lid, then when you put the second drop in, it will wash the first one out anyway, if you do it straight away. So yeah, if you're unsure, do another one.
Do another one. But that's a good point. Like either it's run down your face or it's gone in your eyes. So you'll know one or the other, hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah, great. And then we've had a couple of questions about sort of specifically dry eye drops. So is it okay to use lid wipes for blepharitis actually straight after using their eye drops? So it's not a dry eye drop, it was latanoprost. So is it okay to do lid wipes straight after eye drops?
I wouldn't. I'd leave a bit of time. Leave about half an hour before you do the cleaning of your eyelids.
Okay, great. Right, those are the main eye drops ones. We've had a couple of sort of living with glaucoma questions, so slightly different to anything that we've already talked about. And there's actually two things about sleep. So one person who wants to know about sleep masks on their eyes, and sort of using sleep masks and feeling like they might have put a bit of pressure on their eyes in their sleep due to the mask. Is that a problem?
Oh, I don't know, to be quite honest. I haven't had that question before, and I don't know how you would necessarily prove it. I mean, as long as the mask isn't too, tight around your head, it's what I'm thinking. I'm looking and thinking. I mean, it's not going to be a rigid mask, it's going to be a soft mask. So I can't see any real problem with it, to be perfectly honest. But if they wanted to check with their consultant, they could always. I've never read anything that suggests that this could happen. So I don't think it would be a problem.
Okay, great, thank you. And someone else asking about they sleep on their side, but I suppose, do they need special pillows? And I think it's something we get a bit, isn't it, about how do people try and sleep in the best possible position for their glaucoma?
Yeah, again, I mean, there's not foolproof evidence. There have been studies and research into this, and it doesn't seem to be something that eye specialists are actually giving, advice on, that you've got to sleep like this, you've got to sleep like. And the trouble is, when you're asleep, how do you know how you're sleeping anyway? I mean, yes, if you feel that 2 pillows is going to be better rather than laying, completely flat, then by all means do. But the sleep is the most important thing, to be quite honest with you. How comfortable you are and everything. So I wouldn't let that worry you too much. No.
Yeah, great. So again, don't let the sort of glaucoma take over your life.
Yes.
Have a good night's sleep and look after your well-being, and then worry about the sleep only if your consultant has said something about it. Great. We've had a couple of questions about a couple more questions about laser. So these are both about SLT. We said that obviously it might not last forever. So how many times can it be repeated? Is there a limit that we know? If it's worked, could you then have it again and again and again?
It depends on how much of the drainage angle you have done each time. So like I said about the 360 degrees. So I've known somebody that had it done had it done 3 times, but I haven't heard of anybody having it more than that. I think what happens is, you see, you can have it done the first time and it works really well. The second time it can work, but it won't work as well. So depending on how well it worked the second time is whether it was worth doing it a third time or not.
Okay. So it sort of peters a bit.
Yeah, it does.
And then if we're saying it doesn't work forever, well, how often are you monitored to find out actually kind of is the SLT still working?
On your usual appointments, whether it be 3 monthly, 6 monthly, usually sort of 6 monthly. Once it's settled, nothing would happen drastically. You know, it wouldn't like, right, it's stopped now, and whoosh. It would happen slowly. So usually 6 monthly appointments are fine.
Okay, great, thank you. We've got a few more questions. I don't think we'll be able to get through all of them, so I will do my best and I'll ask the ones that I think are of sort of the most general interest, and I'm really sorry if we don't manage to answer all of your questions, but please do contact our helpline. I'll put the details up at the end. So we'll do some.
I'll hurry up now as well. We'll do
No, it's
Go
fine.
on.
It's always the problem. It's a problem of success where we've got loads of questions. Question again from Facebook. How long does a trabeculectomy last?
Right, there's no definite time. I've spoken to somebody that had one 25, 26 years ago. I've spoken to somebody who it's lasted 11 years. On the whole, it is a pretty long time. I would say you can sort of monitor that maybe between sort of 11 to 25. Again, it depends. It depends so much. But they're looking for it to last you, and you can tweak it as time goes by as well. So it can be a long time. Yeah.
Great, that's very reassuring. And someone who's had a trab in both eyes, one feels fine, but the other feels like it's got something in it. Could that be the bleb?
Could be the bleb. It could be if any stitches remain around the incision, the trapdoor, what they call the trapdoor. But it could be the bleb. If it's uncomfortable and is causing your eye to perhaps go a little bit red and sore, then yes, you should be seen for that, and just to get it checked.
Great, thanks. So don't suffer in silence. And we'll do a tiny bit more on driving. So someone's going for their DVLA test tomorrow. Good luck. Do they have the right to see the report before it goes off to the DVLA?
They have a right to have a copy of the report. So when they go, did you say it's tomorrow?
Yep.
Yeah, when they go tomorrow, ask for a copy of the test results. Yeah, you're allowed to do that. So no problem there. Next.
Great, thank you. And last one, I don't know if this is about driving specifically, but do you have any tips on how to do the field test well?
Of course I do, because I've done them. Okay, how to do them well? Well, there's no cheating. I can't give you any tips on that. If you have dry eyes, my advice would be to put some dry eye drops in, say, an hour before you're due to have the actual test, because that's going to stop any blurring from dry eyes. Wear glasses if you wear glasses for driving. If you wear glasses for driving, I think I would also ask if I could do one test with the glasses and one test without.
That's for the driving field test, isn't it? Not
for the
other
driving
one
you have in the hospital. Yeah, we are talking about that one, aren't we?
The question wasn't clear, so
okay, right, okay, so carry on with the driving one for now. So using both eyes, blink as often as you need to. The machine takes that into account. Fixate on that central light. Now that's on both of them. Now I'm talking for both tests, because you're doing the kind of the same thing. So fixate or look at that central light all the time. It's easy to sort of just go off, but as long as you remember to, focus back on that light. If you think you've pressed a button when there wasn't a light, don't worry, it will come up on the test and say that is the case. It's easy to get trigger happy, click, click, click. Don't worry about that. Just try to be fairly calm about it and relaxed about it. You're just looking for lights. If you're not sure whether you've seen a light or not, the next time it appears, it will be that fraction brighter. And it's the difference between not knowing and knowing. So don't let that worry. As I say, carry on blinking, carry on breathing as well, because lots of people seem to hold their breath quite some time. If you want to stop, for any reason, just let the person, the operator, know I need to stop, even if it was, you know, very, very hot. If it was like the other Tuesday and you need, you know, I need some water, or if you're finding something's distracting around you, can I just stop for a minute? That's absolutely fine too. If you're not feeling very well on the day, also let your consultant or the doctor you see afterwards know about this, because it can make, you know, a difference to the test. Or if you've got a lot going on in your life and, you know, you're not going to be concentrating so much, they'll still look at the results, but just make sure people know that that is the case.
Great, thank you. So that, you know, the technician is a human, and the test will be analysed by the doctor, who's a human. So, you know, be a human. Exactly. and sort of don't be afraid of doing that. Great, right. I'm so aware of time. We've overrun ever so slightly, but we had so many questions. So thank you so much, Helen. I've bombarded you with all sorts of questions, and you've been really fantastic as ever. So we will just wrap up now. So as I've said, I'm really sorry if we didn't get to answer your question, and we were swamped. So if you would still like to ask your question, or if you think of any questions afterwards and you think, oh, actually, you know, I really wish I knew the answer to this, our helpline details are on the screen now. Please get in touch with them. You'll speak to Helen or our colleague Trish. So that's phone 01233 648170, or email helpline@glaucoma.uk. We're open 9:30 till 5, Monday to Friday. Please do get in touch if there's anything that's come up today that you just want a bit more of an explanation on, or you want to sort of ask a bit more of a specific question. So as ever, we have polls. I'm just going to launch our second poll now. So please do bear with us. Also, please do respond to that so we know how successful the sessions are. We have a bit of a break now, summer break, until September with our next series of talks. We've got loads planned on eye drops, pigment dispersion glaucoma, Child-Bonnet syndrome, open angle glaucoma, future glaucoma treatments. Keep checking our website or sign up to our mailing, our email focus via our website, and then we'll tell you all about the topics, the talks that are coming up. We really hope there's something of interest to you. We do listen very carefully to the recommendations and suggestions from you, our wonderful audience, about what you want us to cover. So we really hope we're planning a good old mix of stuff. It's all available on our website or in our Insight magazine or our email newsletter. Please consider completing the survey, which we'll launch when this webinar ends. We really do look at all the responses very carefully. We really want the sessions to be as valuable as possible for you, our audience. So do share your feedback, and we do bear it in mind. And thank you so much to our audience on Facebook. I can see you've been quite engaged. We've had some questions. We'll post the survey there as well. Any feedback you provide will be most gratefully received. So thank you so much for joining us. We really hope you've enjoyed this evening. Thank you to Helen, our wonderful helpline advisor, and thank you to all of you who've joined. Thank you. Bye.